welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here today. I've got buttons that were unpushed, and so I had to re-push them once again. I'm Sean Stiers. Trevor Trowbridge is with me once again today. How are you today, Trevor?
I'm great, man. Another show I get to do with Sean Stiers. This is a good day.
Hey, another day I get to do with Trevor Trowbridge. That's right. Tell you what, I knew this was going to happen. It's cooled off outside and all, like the last couple of months in the studio, it's been pretty chilly. And so this week with the weather also chilling outside, I started wearing the sweatshirt. So I come in today and now it's warm in the studio. So go figure. Some news that we're going to get to. Marcus Freeman, Zoom press conference with the media earlier today. We're going to hear a lot of Marcus Freeman's comments from that about a lot of different things, including a couple of key injuries that Notre Dame just had pop up this week. We're going to be talking about that. The biggest news of the day, a couple of news items I wanted to mention here at the top of the show. Indiana has reached a new 8-year contract agreement with Curt Cignetti. It'll make him one of the highest paid football coaches in the FBS. The salary will reportedly average $11.6 million per year. He, of course, guided the Hoosiers to a 10-2 record, the college football playoff last year. And now, after last week's win over Oregon, they're third in the nation, 6-0, going into this week's game against Michigan State. And he is also a hot commodity after James Franklin was fired. No secret, I guess, no doubt about why they did this when they did it. I was blown away, though, seeing when the report came across ESPN that Curt Cignetti had agreed to something. It's substantial, obviously, but the fact that he agreed to this so quickly, just a few days after Franklin was fired, what do you think, Trevor?
I think one on the side of Indiana, I think that's a genius move. I mean,
absolutely on their part. Yeah,
definitely not an understatement to say that he is a once-in-a-lifetime coach, considering Indiana has never been this good in their program's history. They just picked up their biggest win in program history. There's a part of me that's a little, I guess, not surprised that he signed it this quickly. But you look at Curt Cignetti, and he is somebody. A lot of people, like you brought up, his name got danced around with the Penn State job. Fact of the matter is, he's a 64-year-old head coach, and he's already starting to build something really impressive down in Bloomington. There's just not a whole lot of reason for him to leave. And over the last 2 seasons, especially this one, you can make the argument that IU has now surpassed Penn State short term in the Big Ten. We'll see who takes over coaching next, but. I mean, I think the money was deserved, and he's done an impressive job at Bloomington. Done something that no other coach has been able to do for them.
No, absolutely. I mean, just in a very short amount of time has become the most successful coach in the history of the program, just in taking him to the playoff last year. And a lot of people, myself included, doubted that he could keep it going because of the formula that he came with, bringing all the guys with him from James Madison. Even though, like to his credit, it's one thing to bring a bunch of guys with you from your old program, but to go to a Big Ten program and win with FCS players, that's pretty impressive in itself. And a former MAC quarterback. And now in year 2, as we've talked about, he has got that program clicking even better. I think that they are a better team this year than last year. So good for him. He's obviously a guy who had to wait a long time coaching at places like Indiana University, Pennsylvania, like talk about off the beaten path, and Elon and James Madison and getting to where he is. So the I mean, Decaf 18 says thank Mark Cuban. Whoever, I mean, Indiana's got Mark Cuban being at the top of the list, but Indiana's got some donors with some money, and they've shown that they are willing to shell out some NIL bucks. That's a big part, obviously, of for any program to get transfers to come in. I wonder what maybe behind the scenes commitments to things like facilities upgrades and those kind of things that Indiana promised him as well, because I would think that has got to be pretty important. Especially like when you compare it to a place like Penn State, where they do have really nice facilities and they're doing a $700 million renovation of an already very big, loud stadium there at State College.
I mean, fact of the matter is Curt Cignetti held up his end of the bargain. Hey,
Yeah.
we'll put you guys on the map. You guys got to start giving us the facilities to continue this thing. So, yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see what the Hoosiers do with their money moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, he obviously could have held out, said, look, let's wait till the end of the season and let his agents talk to Penn State people in the meantime. And I would imagine Penn State people would be reaching out. It would make a lot of sense to reach out to a guy like Cignetti, who is a Pittsburgh native, so he's from there and the whole thing. But hey, good for Curt Cignetti, good for Indiana. He's obviously content with where he is. To sign a deal like this at age 64 makes him one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football, and Indiana gets to keep their man who's got them playing very well on the national stage right now. Now, some bad news today. Notre Dame men's basketball, they announced that freshman center Tommy Oneman had successful left knee surgery earlier today. They will, what they said in their statement is they will reassess his status around the start of the new calendar year. So we'll have to watch that. Unfortunate news, though, for both Tommy Oneman, obviously Trevor, and Notre Dame men's basketball. Very talented freshman center, and size is something that never goes out of style.
Yeah, unfortunately, size is kind of coming at a premium for this Notre Dame basketball team on the men's side. Look, Tommy Oneman was one of your biggest players. He was 6'10", he was 250. You have some other big guys. Keba Jai is still there. He's 6'10", 255. But I'm sure we can agree that Jai has yet to kind of be the big-bodied player that we expected him to be after he followed Micah Shrewsbury over. Hopefully that starts to pick up this year. And then some of their other big guys, I mean, you look at Garrett Sunder, he's 6'11", but he's 6'11", 230, and they use him more as a winger, honestly. I mean, he does some of his best work from beyond the arc. And then one of their guys that they picked up, Carson Tout, in the transfer portal, he's 250, but he's 6'8". And so it's just different sizes, but it's definitely a bummer.
Tough blow for Notre Dame men's basketball, looking to make a move this year in Micah Shrewsbury's third season at Notre Dame and in the ACC. Alex in the YouTube chat asked when the Freeman extension is coming. I mean, the ink's barely dry on the one that he signed last December.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think Marcus Freeman is, like we talked about this week when we've talked about his name coming up in connection with the Penn State job. I don't think Marcus Freeman's agent had anything to do with his name attached to that. It just makes sense if you're Penn State doing your due diligence that you're going to talk to the best college coaches, especially one of the best young coaches in the country like Marcus Freeman. And I don't think he's going to hold Notre Dame over a barrel every time his name is mentioned for a new job, for a new contract. I think he's got a lot better faith than that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Penn State's doing their due diligence. You have to put out a list, and you would be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't reach out to some of the best coaches in college football. We can have a different conversation around how funny it is that a lot of Penn State fans talk about how Notre Dame is second to them and their team's not that good, but everybody wants the head coach at this
right
program. But
right. We're better than you, but we sure want your head coach.
we're better than you, but if you could bring over Marcus Freeman and your offensive coordinator and Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Eli
just don't bring back J1 Sider. We never really liked him.
They probably want him right now.
No, that's exactly. But like, you've probably seen a lot of this stuff. He didn't develop guys and this and that and everything. Okay. A little bit sour grapes, I think, after your guy left is what it's all about. All right, well, we'll talk about the Cignetti thing again in rapid fire in hour number 2 of the show, but we've got a lot of Notre Dame news to get to today from Marcus Freeman's Zoom media call earlier this afternoon. The news of the day is that defensive tackle Gabe Rubio and defensive end / special teams ace Loghan Thomas will both be out for this week's game against USC. Rubio has an elbow injury. Thomas has a concussion, and Marcus Freeman discussed them earlier this afternoon.
We've had a committee at defensive tackle. Obviously, you don't want to lose Gabe. Just from experience, from a production, from a veteran guy, but you have a lot of confidence in those guys in that room, and spreading out that production amongst a couple guys. Everybody's got to step up a little bit more, right? Onye, Donnie, Jared Dawson, Elijah Hughes, Cole Mullins, like all those guys will have to continue to elevate their game. And the same thing with LT, with Loghan Thomas, the value he brings more than anything on special teams is something that not many people talk about. He's a great special teams player for us and can come down there on some pass rush situations that we're going to have to find a good replacement for that role.
All right, so let's start with Gabe Rubio. Trevor, how significant is that for Notre Dame losing Rubio for this week's game against the Trojans?
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant. He was your most, I would argue, your most consistent interior defensive lineman. One of the aspects of his game that I really thought took a step this year was his ability to get after the passer. Mm-hmm. He's always been a strong run defender. Eats up space. He's your biggest defensive tackle in the rotation at 6'5", 322. So it's definitely a blow. He was playing his best football this season, consistent, and he's going up against, well, Notre Dame's going up against an offensive line that has a lot of size to it in USC, especially along their interior.
And they're averaging over 200 rushing yards per game. You know, they're putting up some numbers right now. Again, how much they've lost their top couple of running backs, so it's going to be interesting to see just how much this does matter. It definitely matters because, as you said, he's been getting after it these last few games in terms of pass rush, but he's also a grader in the middle. And he also, even though like Marcus Freeman was talking about the rotation they have on the interior and across the defensive line for that matter, but Rubio has the most snaps of any of the interior defensive linemen, 173 snaps that he's played this season. Donovan Heinisch is next with 157, and then it goes down to Onye with 148. Dawson has 138. Elijah Hughes has played 92. The thing with Hughes, though, is his snap count has gone up these last 4 games. He played just 9 snaps in the first 2 games of the season, and so he has picked up, 83 snaps in these last 4 games. So he's averaging over 20 per game. Again, not a lot. They've always kind of been a by committee type approach, but it's some guys are just, quite frankly, I think Hughes against his old team, I think that he kind of becomes a big X factor in this game Saturday.
Yeah, it's going to be a group effort to replace Rubio's production. Really 4 guys, Onye, Heinisch, Hughes, and Dawson are going to have to step it up. Hopefully this isn't a game where we see Armel Mukum in some meaningful minutes. He's another big body on the interior we haven't seen a whole lot of. But again, it's to your point, Sean, it's going to be by committee. It won't be one person to replace what Gabe Rubio does.
And the other guy, Loghan Thomas, again, reserve defensive end. We haven't seen a ton of him, just 28 defensive snaps. But the big loss with him is the 101 special teams snaps that he has. He's far and away the leader in terms of the special teams units, in terms of the amount of snaps that he's played. He's on virtually all the units out there. And we saw a couple of games ago, I guess it's been a little while now, but he had that block punt that Notre Dame was able to turn into a touchdown, the only block punt that they've got so far this season. That long, twitchy, athletic body, that's going to be missed. Just how much it's missed, I guess, TBD. We'll find out Saturday night.
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer. Marty Biage's unit is down a good player in Loghan Thomas. And then again, it's just Notre Dame's defensive line continuing to battle through losing yet another edge rusher. Last year you had the injuries, you had Botello out, you had Boubacar out, you had some guys that needed to step up. Josh Burnham hasn't been fully in the rotation. I would expect that to change this weekend, especially with how much USC likes to run the football. But yeah, it's a bummer. Special teams for sure, but defensively, Loghan Thomas is one of your twitchiest edge rushers on the team. And you said he played how many defensive snaps? 28?
Who's that? Loghan Thomas on special. Thomas 28 defensive snaps, 101 special team snaps.
Yeah, I think that needs studied in and of itself, and that's maybe a different conversation for a different day. But it's definitely a bummer to lose a talented kid like him too.
For sure. So some other news. Marcus Freeman didn't talk about these other guys, but Notre Dame released their injury report, their updated Thursday injury report today, and probably the one. Well, there's 2 I think that people are looking at the most closely. One is nickelback Devontae Smith. He is still listed as questionable with a calf injury. Wide receiver Jayden Greathouse with a right thigh also listed as questionable. Tight end Cooper Flanagan with his Achilles that he tore in the Sugar Bowl last year, also questionable. And then reserve offensive lineman Will Black, concussion. He's questionable as well. So will he, won't he? Devontae Smith at nickel, very important with Mekhi Lemon. I knew it wasn't Malachi, but Malachi was like in the front of my head. I had to make sure that I said his name right. Mekhi Lemon, their slot receiver, USC's slot receiver and leading receiver. That's potentially who Devontae Smith would guard if he's out there. It's a calf injury. So, like, he missed last week's game. How are you approaching this, both if you're him and your Notre Dame, in terms of how you're looking at this, not just for this week, but for the entirety of the season as well, potentially?
I mean, if he's not good to go, he's not good to go. I mean, my mindset is a 100% Dallas Golden is better than an 85% Devontae Smith. At the end of the day, you're going up against one of the best slot receivers in the country. And if your calf injury is questionable, I don't know what it is. They didn't disclose if it was a calf strain or if there was some other underlying issue there. But, I mean, calf strains are one of those things that easily turn into a torn Achilles.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. And
like the first thing I think of, I mean, you live in Indy, is Tyrese Halliburton, Kevin Durant, obviously basketball players. But that's with both of those guys, it started out as a calf injury, and they both turned into Achilles tears. And I think that that's what you have to be very wary of. Like, if it's still bothersome at all, like, that could turn into something much, much worse if you try to rush him back too soon.
Yeah, play your cards right. You'd rather have him for the postseason than not have him at all.
Yeah, exactly. Wide receiver Micah Gilbert, who injured his hand against NC State last week, he'll also be out this week. So no more guys. I mean, two more guys on the injury report because we didn't know about Rubio or Logan Thomas, obviously, earlier this week, but a pretty fair list of guys, unfortunately. So no Gabe Rubio, no Logan Thomas for this game against USC Saturday night. So Marcus Freeman also asked who came out on top to start at center this week, with Ashtron Craig, who injured his knee last week. He's now out for the season. So who emerged at center for the Irish this week?
Will be our starting center. He's had a great week of prep. There really hasn't been any adjustments that we've had to make. He's been ready to go, and knowing if in case that Ashton got hurt. Now all those things are great, but you got to go out and do it in the game. And he's had some in-game experience, but we're going out. This will be his first time starting, and we. Like any first time, there's always going to be some ups and downs, but we are very confident in what he can do and what he's being asked to do. And, he's going to do a good job when he gets in there.
All right. So it's going to be Joe Otting and Cam Herron behind him. Freeman was also asked if Sullivan Absher practiced at center this week. No, Sullivan Absher, he did not practice this week at center, Marcus Freeman said. So I don't know, Otting played just a little bit last week. What's your are you more confident than concerned? Where are you on what's going to happen at center against Southern Cal?
I guess a little neutral. The unfortunate reality is that Ashtron Craig hasn't finished the season since he's been a starting center at Notre Dame. It's unfortunate. He's great when he's on the field, but now the quote when he's on the field is becoming a little bit more relevant. The bright side is their backup in Joe Otting. One, you're not giving up a whole lot of size. Ashtron Craig, I think, is 6'5", 310. Joe Otting is 6'4", 308. And then when you look at his experience, very limited in-game experience. I thought he performed well when he came in against NC State. But we're also talking about a center who he took all of the first-team reps in the spring alongside Billy Schrouth because Ashtron Craig was working back from his knee injury he suffered last season. So little bit of chemistry there with Billy Schrouth. That leaves me a little bit more confident. But, I mean, I know this kind of sucks to say, but when you're a Notre Dame fan, you kind of get a little bit desensitized to injuries in a little bit because it's –
I mean, think about last year. Man.
Exactly. I mean, it's unfortunate. I feel bad for Ashtron Craig because he was having a really good season. but it's just kind of next man in mentality, I guess. I mean, that's something that we had to learn last year. It's, you lose your left tackle before the season starts, and you lose your center, you lose your right guard for 4 games, and then on defense, you lose all those guys. So I guess to answer your question, I'm a little neutral. I have confidence in Joe Otting, but part of me still has to see it against a good interior defensive line.
Indy Forever in the YouTube chat asks, if Otting were to implode Saturday night, any chance they look at moving the current line around to accommodate another offensive lineman? I mean, I'm sure there's a chance. I mean, you do have a bye week coming up, so you've got some extra time to look at some things. Like if everybody's always got the doomsday scenario, it feels like can we trust, like look at the injuries that they went through last year and did get to the national championship game? Can we trust that maybe the staff is, going to be able to prepare these guys and have them ready?
Yeah. In situations like this, you try to limit the collateral, right? You don't want to go in as like, okay, well, if he's bad, then you can move Knapp to center, and then you can move Lambert to left tackle, and then you could put Sullivan Absher in at right guard. It's like,
you don't want to reshuffle your whole line by any means.
Yeah. So I would prefer it. You just either have him give him a little bit more of a sample size at center. A top 20 matchup at night in South Bend as your first start is also not an easy thing to do. So I'm not saying I would excuse a really, really bad performance, quote, I guess, if he implodes, but I'm also not completely shuffling around the entire offensive line if his performance isn't what Ashtron Craig would have done.
Let's take a timeout. When we come back, we've got more comments from Marcus Freeman, from the weather to Southern Cal quarterback Jordan Maiava, and more, all coming up when we continue with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers, and it's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues, along with Trevor Trowbridge, Sean Stiers. Glad to have you with us on the show today, whether you're listening on Sports Radio WSBT, the Sports Radio WSBT app, watching on the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel, or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel. You've got a million different ways to watch, listen, whatever you want to do. Rocky Rhodes in the YouTube chat was asking if Jason Garrett is doing the game this week. He says, I like when he tells us we're without Morrison this year. A recurring theme. He will not be, though. It'll be Todd Blackledge doing the analysis and Noah Eagle with the play-by-play. Welcome, Tristan. He says he finally made it for a live show and got home and made a drink. Cheers to you, my friend. Cheers to you. Adam asking in the chat says he just came in. Is Gabe hurt or injured? I mean, he's on the injury report and he's listed as out, so I doubt it's just a boo-boo. I mean, they don't necessarily specify, they don't differentiate between hurt or injured. That's not what they tell us. If he is listed as out, it's serious enough for him to be out, especially with a guy like him. I mean, he's a big, tough guy, had to go through some injuries last year to get on the field. So I'm not going to question, how he's feeling by any means.
No, I honestly, I understand. He followed it up. He said two different things. You play hurt. I get where you're coming from, but if somebody's missing time, they're injured. And Gabe Rubio played through a not fully healed foot last year in the playoffs.
Right. So
if he's missing a game, he's injured.
Exactly. Injured. Man, people are a little spicy around here today.
Hey, man, they're amped up for the game.
I don't know if it's just, like USC fever or Southern Cal fever or what. Speaking of which, Jayden Maiava, Trojan quarterback, he's only been sacked twice this season. And Marcus Freeman talked today about his quick release and trying to get some pressure on Jayden Maiava.
I think he's gotten sacked twice maybe, and you're not going to get many sacks when he gets the ball out of his hands that fast. And so we have to try to do a good job of not letting him know exactly what defense we're going to be in pre-snap. You have to try to make him read your defense and go to his second or third progression. That's how you get pressure and you get sacks, because the quarterback has to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. And so we got to try to challenge him to do that. They do a good job of helping him have clarity in his reads, and he's doing a good job of executing what they're asking him to do. So it's a great challenge for us that we're looking forward to seeing how we can get him to hold it on Saturday.
Trevor, what do you think makes Maiava so good?
I mean, a couple of things. Their offensive line is pretty good. Yeah, I would argue that they haven't played a defensive line with as much talent as Notre Dame's yet this season.
Would you call their offensive line a little underrated, maybe? They did make the Joe Moore midseason award, just like Notre Dame's offensive line. So I guess they're getting some attention. So
yeah. I mean, to a degree, sure. I think it depends on who you talk to. They're either underrated or overrated, if you ask me.
Right.
Like, I think USC's offensive line is better than NC State's and Boise State's. I don't think it's as good as Miami's or Texas A&M's. I think they fit somewhere in between those two.
Agree.
They're a bunch of guys that do their job. There's no crazy athletic freaks on it. There's no Joe Alt. There's no Ronnie Stanley on their offensive line. But I think Jayden Maiava, he benefits from a couple of things. One, USC's been able to run the ball extremely effective this year. He's completing 75% of his passes off of play action. And when he does have straight dropbacks, he gets the ball out really, really quickly. And that's one of the reasons why Notre Dame has to have an aggressive game plan. Getting pressure on Jayden Maiava isn't just the front four getting home. Like Marcus Freeman's talked all along, you have to marry the coverage with the front. And it's really hard to get a sack on a quarterback when he's getting the football out in under a second and a half.
And that's why I think with these, depth chart running backs that they're going to have running the ball this week with their best guys injured, at the very least, limiting that running game is going to help Notre Dame quite a bit. Obviously, Notre Dame's offense dictating and putting pressure on Maiava to keep up and that kind of thing, I think is going to be important as well. The more you can do that, the more you make them have to continue to throw, I think the better your chances become at getting to him, disrupting him. That's kind of been the key so far this year. I mean, look at the last couple of games when Boise State's quarterback and when NC State's quarterback had to throw more. Look when the interceptions came, and I think that would be the same with Maiava as well if Notre Dame is able to put him, in that kind of predicament where he doesn't want to be all the time. But again, that it comes back to the Gabe Rubio injury, and that will be significant if other guys in that interior aren't able to step up this week. But it has been a struggle for Notre Dame to get pressure on quarterbacks, until recent, just more recently, I guess. So what's your confidence that they can do that against Southern Cal Saturday?
I guess if I had to put it out of 10, I would say like a 5 or a 6. Only reason I say that is I don't think it's a coincidence that when Notre Dame's secondary started playing more aggressive, they've gotten 4 sacks in back-to-back games each.
True.
I don't think that that's a coincidence at all. And so I need to see Chris Ash be willing to play aggressive in the secondary against these talented wide receivers from USC. Because let's face it, man, that's something Al Golden failed to do 2 of the 3 years that he went up against Lincoln Riley in this offense. So if the coverage is aggressive and remains aggressive, I would put my confidence at like a 7. But until I see it on Saturday, in actuality, my confidence is like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, it's weird how scared Golden played in those 2 games, compared to the game here at Notre Dame Stadium 2 years ago when they were just relentless against Caleb Williams with what they did.
Yeah, I'll give them a pass for 22. I know in 2022, Ben Morrison was a freshman. You were missing Cam Hart. Tariq Bracy was out that game. But, you were aggressive. You shut down Caleb Williams in 23. I think the 2024 game plan was a little inexcusable just because you saw what worked against the Lincoln Riley offense and you went away from it. I thought that was odd.
Yeah, and again, like we were talking the other day about, are you willing to maybe concede some running yards if your focus is shutting down the pass game? And that's kind of what Al Golden tried in that Caleb Williams game plan out in the Coliseum a couple of years ago, and it just exploded, just backfired on him like no other. You're right. It was, yeah. I agree with what you're saying, but again, just very un-Al Golden-like to see him go outside what has worked for him so well. But I think this is going to be kind of how does Chris Ash answer all these things? Again, like, is this the game where we really find out about Chris Ash and just how far this defense has come after the really horrible start to the season in the first 2.5 games with Purdue included in that half? Like, it feels like we're going to find out a heck of a lot more about Chris Ash in this game than what we found out against Boise State with Carolina State, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is the culmination game, right? You wanted to see signs against Boise State and signs against NC State, which was leading you to this challenge. It's not an exaggeration to say that this is probably the most talented team that Notre Dame is going to face in the remainder of the regular season. I'm confident in saying that, with all due respect to Syracuse and Boston College and Navy and Stanford but this is a really, really tough test. And now it's put up or shut up time for this defense. It's one thing to look good against NC State and Boise State and Purdue at times, but you got to put it all together for this one.
Adam in the YouTube chat says it's Ash's final test. Is it his final or is it his midterm exam? Feels more like a midterm to me since we're only in the middle of the season. But, we know how many eggs are in the basket on this one in terms of Notre Dame's big picture outlook for this season. You've got to win Saturday night. You can't do that unless you've got a respectable defense against this offense. But it's USC has been good, but it's also not like they just terrorized Illinois or they terrorized Michigan State by any means.
Yeah, agreed.
So rain is in the forecast for Saturday's game. I know, like rain is just the worst. It feels like, especially if you have thunderstorms, which is part of what's, like look at the Purdue game when we had a lightning delay and all that kind of stuff. But Freeman was asked if he's done anything special to prepare for potential weather Saturday.
You always got to be prepared, right? That's the one thing you can't control is your preparation. And so we know the weather can affect game plans. The weather can affect multiple different things, right? From the walk from the Basilica, there could be delays, and so we're aware. We have plans, and then we have to adapt and adjust. That's more than anything. We don't know what exactly the weather will be. And what's going to happen, but we have to make sure we have a plan, and we do for all the different scenarios that could happen.
Do we underrate or do we overrate the weather going into a game like this?
I mean, I'll always err on the side of overrate, not even just specific to this game. This is just me personally. I hate questions about the weather. That is one of the few things in a football game that coaches and teams just straight up can't control. You can prepare for it, but it's different. You can't simulate 35-mile-an-hour gusts. You can simulate wet footballs. I'm sure that they did some of those drills in practice this week. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing about preparing for the heat or preparing for the cold or preparing for the rain or the snow. Or next time I'm at a Marcus Freeman press conference, I might ask him how he's preparing for the weather if it's 68 and breezy, just for fun. But
hey, you're going to Southern Cal.
Yeah.
What do you think about that weather?
Hey, you'll be out in Stanford. You'll be out on the West Coast this weekend. How are you guys preparing to go from 22 degrees and lake effect snow to sunshine? But in a game like this, I would like to say that it favors Notre Dame, but I mean, Notre Dame has one of the better pass offenses in the country this year. So does USC. So this is going to come down to physicality. Who can win at the line of scrimmage? Who can run the ball the most effectively? And I err that on the side of the team that has the two best running backs in the country.
I completely agree with that. I think that that's an advantage for Notre Dame. End of the day, both teams have to play in the same conditions, regardless. Like maybe slight advantage if it's cold and rainy and wet, just because you are coming from Los Angeles where it's probably 15 to 20 degrees warmer and it doesn't rain nearly as much. But it's not like nobody from USC has ever played in the rain. And again, when it all comes down to it, both teams have to play in the same weather. So Tristan wants to know if I've got a Royals hat on. It is actually old school Brooklyn Dodgers hat that I've got on today. I lost my favorite Royals hat a couple years back. I can't find it. And I've got a couple other Royals hats. I don't like them nearly as much, but yeah, so it's Brooklyn Dodgers I got on today. Roger Dodger, our resident, sometimes checks in USC Trojans fan, said it rained in LA this week. So maybe they've got even more practice prepping in the weather. I didn't ask Marcus Freeman this today. This was the only question about weather that came up today, but going into that Miami season opener, I did ask him on the Thursday Zoom call that week if they had practiced during the week, like with wet balls or anything like that. And he said they didn't mess with any of that, kind of the same deal. Like everyone's got to play in it and we'll take it as we get there. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to keep the line items down, not having to go out and get more footballs. I don't know.
Yeah, I bet the budget is really concerned in South Bend this year.
Draining that budget with those extra footballs. You got them wet. You waterlogged them. All right. We'll take our last time out this hour. Back with more from Marcus Freeman as we get ready for Notre Dame and Southern Cal this Saturday night at Notre Dame Stadium. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. Sean Stiers, Trevor Trowbridge. Bobby Hensley's going to come in the second hour and just totally wreck this show like he always does.
Oh, poor Bobby.
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen when he blows in the door? I don't know. You can't. You can only hope to contain him. Is kind of how it works out. Notre Dame Southern Cal Saturday night kicks off at 7:30. You'll hear it here on Sports Radio WSBT. Our game day coverage starts at 3 o'clock. The game day show, 3 to 6:30 Eastern time, live at the Linebacker, right across the street from campus. Tim Grell, Jimmy Rosari, Eric Hansen, Tyler Horka, and their guests will be there as well before the Irish take on the Trojans. This Saturday night, this week's guest, 3 former Notre Dame players, Matthias Farley, Torian Smith, and Carlo Calabrese. They will all be there at the Linebacker with the 4 gents. So be there, have some fun, 3 to 6 o'clock. And then, of course, the kickoff at 7:30 Eastern time on Sports Radio WSBT, the Notre Dame Radio Network, and the Odyssey app, AUDACY. All right. I think we've got time for at least another comment from Marcus Freeman before we get to the end of this first hour of the show, Trevor. He talked about whether right tackle Emil Wagner can elevate his play this season. Here's what Marcus Freeman said about Emil Wagner.
No, I personally, I don't. It's hard for me to compare what he's doing now to last year. I'm always a guy that's just, we got to keep getting better, right? And I'm, as I've said previously, I have the utmost confidence in our whole entire offensive line, but Emil Wagner, because if you didn't, you should replace him, right? If you don't have confidence in the guy, why is he out there? And so we have the utmost confidence, but we're always looking for ways to improve, right? And that's every person. That's Emil. That's myself. Like, how do we continuously find ways to improve? And so you've heard me say before, I let go of the past, right? You let go of the past because you believe there's better in the future. Like people hold on to the past because they think maybe that's the only thing that's going to be as good as it gets. So I've let go. I don't know how he did last year, but I know that he's going to continue to get better, and I'm excited to see him on Saturday.
All right, so there's Marcus Freeman with the vote of confidence for right tackle Emil Wagner. Trevor, how would you describe Wagner's play that you've seen from him this season?
Outside of the first game, I think he's been solid. I think that's a good way to explain it. I don't think he's lived up to the expectations of what I had for him this year. I thought he was going to be a pretty elite right tackle. Some others had him ranked in their other outlets, had him ranked in their like preseason, like top 10, top 8 offensive tackles returning in college football.
Made some preseason All-American teams and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, his performance against Miami was just flat out not good. He finished with a pass blocking grade of 38, and unfortunately, that was only the 3rd lowest offensive line ranking in pass blocking against Miami. But since then, he hasn't allowed a single hit or sack on the quarterback. So he's turned it around. I think there's some things that he is doing, I guess, technically that I don't love. But outside of that, like, I think he's been fine. He's been solid.
Yeah. Solid is I think a good word for it. I would honestly say he's been a little bit more inconsistent this year than last year. But again, like if you go across the board, he's been good. But the fact that we're talking about him at the midway point is completely different than a year ago, because I said this several times. Emil Wagner last year was the offensive lineman we never had to talk about. And that meant that by and large, he was doing really well. So he's kind of having in year 2 more of a season like I would have expected from him in year 1, just a little bit more inconsistency. But I agree. I mean, his worst game far and away was the first game when he was matched up against Bain quite a bit. But when you look at what Ruben Bain is right now, I mean, a lot of people are talking about him as a first-round draft pick and an All-American and, you know, like on all these midseason lists and all this different stuff. So Roger Dodger, the USC fan, asks if he's number 59. Yes, he is number 59. And I agree with what Roger said. He does have pretty good feet. Just some technical inconsistencies, caught on his, heels a few more times than usual, maybe, again, compared to last year, but I think he's been good overall. Needs to be good again this Saturday night.
Yep.
I'll do.
Yep. I agree. They got some big defensive ends at USC. They got one guy that's 6'6", 285. He's really long. I've just had some issues with Emil Wagner's technique this season. That's all. Like, I think his feet have been fine. He crosses his feet a little bit too much. I think he stands up too straight, doesn't play with great leverage. So, it's not great, but things that he can fix.
Yep. We got some more USC people jumping in here in the YouTube chat today. It's taken until the end of the week. Funny though, it's been weeks, and I mean weeks, since we saw our old friend Penn State Sports Talk. That was his handle in the YouTube chat. I remember he came in when USC was getting ready to take on Oregon, and he put up 3-0 in the YouTube chat. A little bit different now. A little bit different.
I mean, at what point do we send out a wellness check? Is he okay?
Exactly.
Ugh.
Might have to go check on him. Tristan 1776 in the YouTube chat says, Sean, excuse the random question, but what was your MOS? MOS is like everyone in the military has a numerical and alphabetic like code for what their job is, basically military occupational skill. And mine was 98 golf with the designator RU. Basically, as a lot of people who listen to the show know, I was a Russian linguist, went to a language school to learn Russian in Monterey, California for a year. And then when I was done with that and the training in San Angelo, Texas at Goodfellow Air Force Base, spent the last 2.5 years at a place called Field Station Augsburg in Bavaria, near, I guess it would be a little bit west of Munich, and listened to Russians and Germans and everybody else over there. That was, I mean, just show how old I am. When I got there, the Eastern Bloc still stood, like the wall was still up. But within about a year or so after getting there, the wall came down and things opened up and all that kind of stuff. But so that's what I did. That's what I did for 4 years in good old Uncle Sam's Army. NH says Augsburg is pretty. It's a really cool town. Absolutely. All right. Tristan was asking, what is the 98 series? The 98 series is, well, I don't know what because there's like 98 Charlie as well. And 98 Charlie, they were the analysts. So they weren't linguists, but they would, so like we would intercept different transmissions and things like that in different languages. There were all different languages there. There was Czech, there was German, there were Romanian, all whatever, like in Europe over there. So we would, like, the 98 Golfs would intercept it, and then the 98 Charlies would look at it and like check it out for intelligence, information and all that different kind of stuff. So, but like, yeah, so that's all I can tell you about that. People are probably pretty bored listening to the Army MOS talk right now. We'll take a timeout, though. That's the end of hour number 1. Bobby Hensley joins us in hour number 2 for some rapid fire. That is coming up. We've got a lot, including the Curt Cignetti news at Indiana today, more on Notre Dame, USC, and a lot more coming up. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's a full house for hour number 2 of the show, and that means rapid fire time. I'm Sean Stiers, Trevor Trowbridge, Bobby Hensley, both alongside as well. Are we ready to get this whole thing kicked off here?
I'm always ready to see you, Sean. It's always good to see Trevor,
Yeah.
We do have a full house. This is going to be fun. What up, Bobby?
How you doing, Trevor?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Let's do this.
Well, you just spent an hour with Sean, so.
Here we go. It's already started. Price29 in the YouTube chat asks if anyone's going to the Dan Patrick show tomorrow. They were out there today. Marcus Freeman was on the show. Brady Quinn was on the show. Hannah Hidalgo was on the show. I just listened to a little bit of Brady Quinn's interview with Dan Patrick when I was driving over here today. They had the podcast posted, so I got to listen to a little bit of that. But, of course, Sports Radio WSBT, the South Bend Dan Patrick Show affiliate. You can hear him here every day on this station. They'll be out there. They're out there by Legends is where they are, which is just south of Notre Dame Stadium. So if you're in town this weekend, stop by and check out Dan Patrick and the gang tomorrow.
Nice plug for the channel.
Hey, got to do what we can, right? Fill in the blank. It's blank that Southern Cal defensive coordinator Danton Lynn says Trojans GM Chad Bowden, who of course was Notre Dame's GM last year, has been a big help this week in sharing information to prepare for Notre Dame's personnel Saturday night.
I mean, I guess my best answer for it is what it is. It's not a surprise. Some people might not like this answer, but I mean, he should, right? Like I don't like it. I don't like hearing it. But what is he telling D'Anton Lynn? Hey, CJ Carr's good. Yeah, no duh.
Right.
What? Hey, you really need to look out for Jeremiah Love. I was his GM last year, so keep an eye out for him too. It's like, okay, thanks, man. In all seriousness, I think it's expected. I'm not super rah-rah about it because that happens like everywhere that you go. Yeah, if Notre Dame, well, I guess they're not going to, but if hypothetically Notre Dame and Penn State were to meet in the postseason, I would expect Jaywan Sider to sit down with Chris Ash and the rest of their defensive coaching staff, like, hey, here's some of their tendencies.
Right.
I think it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's expected. What you said. What else? And it's not. They're not going to be X's and O's things probably that they're going to give anything. It's just going to be, it's bulletin board material. It's just more fodder for the game. I don't think it really means anything. I don't think that they're giving away the launch codes or some secret strategy or the Tyler Buckner package. It's just going to be normal, just everyday stuff. I don't think there's anything specific that they're going to give away. So it's expected because you can't ignore that he was at Notre Dame and then went to USC. That happens. But I don't think it's going to be anything meaningful.
Look, I buy food at the grocery store, but it doesn't make me a chef. So, you would hope that Bowden knows something about the players since he did recruit them, but are his insights really going to help Marcellus Williams or DeCarlos Nicholson cover Jordan Faison and Malachi Fields? Malachi Fields wasn't here last year. Will Bowden really have some great intel for Desmond Stevens that's going to help him tackle Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price? Probably not, so he can share some insights, but like you said, it's not X and O. I mean, the more important thing to me is USC has the number 100 pass efficiency defense in the nation, and CJ Carr is the number 7 pass efficiency quarterback in the nation, so how much is Chad Bowden going to do to actually help change that Saturday night? He might have some nice little insights about, this and that, but it's like, make him go right, make him go left. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be all that useful at the end.
No, anything that Chad Bowden would tell him, you can either see on film or look at on a scouting report.
Right. And that's the other thing, so is Danton Lynn not watching film anyway? You would hope that Danton Lynn and his staff, just by watching film, would probably glean 99% of anything that Bowden's going to, to ultimately share with him. Roger Dodger, our Southern Cal fan in the YouTube chat, says, don't forget about Urlacher sharing. And that's I was thinking about this yesterday. We haven't mentioned Kennedy Urlacher all week. Now, he's only played in 3 games, I believe, this season. So he hasn't played a ton for USC this year. but it's also not the same defense. He's playing, they're in a completely different, as we have seen. They can call it the Notre Dame defense if they want, but it's a different defense that they're playing now compared to when Urlacher was here last year.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, and college football with the transfers and with everything else, it's just all different. There's a different quarterback. Everything is different. So to take things away from last year's team to use against them, it's almost like, okay, maybe they would just do something that you would expect just to throw you off. I mean, as a Notre Dame fan, that's kind of what you hope. Like, okay, they think we're going to do this because that's what you're probably going to tell them, and then it's easy to go against it. I just don't think there's anything from any of that being shared.
Yeah, and as NH points out in the YouTube chat, Elijah Hughes sharing with Notre Dame. I don't think it matters either way. I don't either. There are little nuggets that you can talk about, but at the end of the day, guys still have to line up against from each other and beat the other guy. That's what it comes down to. I just don't think that, again, there's all little nuggets in there that I just don't think are going to matter that much when it's all said and done.
No, not everything has to be an episode of Friday Night Lights. Like it's he's probably just sharing some real base information. I have no idea what Kennedy Urlacher could be sharing. Respect to him, I don't really know how much he's going to be able to relate to Marty Biagi's special team scheme, but that's probably what he would be telling them. Right. New defense, no.
Yeah. And even how much of football, honestly, do they already know what's coming from advanced scouting and stuff? Then some guy that has an inside because he played on a team 11 months ago, I don't think any of that's going to help. It still comes down to who's going to execute better.
Yeah, they're going to, again, like as a coaching staff, you're going to find out a lot more about the team you're going to face on film than I think that any of these guys we've mentioned, whether it's Bowden and Urlacher for Southern Cal or Elijah Hughes for Notre Dame. You're going to find out more watching film than anything those guys are going to tell you ultimately. So there was one question about Chad Bowden earlier this week at Marcus Freeman's press conference. Freeman was asked about the recruiting rivalry between the schools with Bowden now at USC and the importance of California in recruiting. So have a listen.
We spend a lot of time. Our focus has to be on selling Notre Dame, and I don't know what people would say against us. That maybe they do say that, but if snow's going to prevent you from coming to Notre Dame, you're probably not the competitor that we desire to have here, right? And it's a factory. Yeah, sometimes it gets cold, but it's pretty nice right now, and that's the only thing that I'll say about the weather, I guess. But California is obviously an important state to us. We've had a lot of success there, and we have to continue to have success there in all over America. All right, we got to find the best players in the country, and I always say that fit this place. And there has been a lot of players from California that have fit this place, that have done a really good job at Notre Dame, and we got to continue to find those guys and convince them why this is the right place for them, all right? Why this is the right place for them. There's a lot of guys that have been in their positions that chose Notre Dame, and look at the success they've had. But you got to understand why this is a special place to attend.
Okay, so that's Marcus Freeman talking about the recruiting and USC and Los Angeles and the whole thing. And again, it was framed in the context of Chad Bowden used to be your general manager. Now he's at USC. Have things kind of heated up in this recruiting rivalry and that kind of stuff. But, okay, so there are no right or wrong answers, guys. You heard what Marcus Freeman said. I'm curious to say if any of those comments that he mentioned there stand out to you guys.
Yeah, it was a coach's answer. I think he was smart to stay away from Chad Bowden specifically. I think that was smart on his, but not a surprise if anybody's been listening to Marcus Freeman's press conferences since he took over. So I expected that answer from him. I do like the fact that he said, hey, like if snow's not going to do it for you, then you're probably not the competitor that we want to attract. Because spoiler alert for people who I guess live down south that might not know, it does snow in other places besides South Bend, Indiana. If snow's not going to do it for you, you probably can't go to Michigan. You probably can't go to Ohio State. Probably can't
snows
go to
in Bloomington too,
or Washington or Oregon. Sometimes it snows down in Knoxville around Tennessee. So I mean, I don't love hurricanes, but if I was getting recruited by Florida, I'm not just going to say no. But so Yeah, I think his comments were fine.
I feel like you're not a winter fan, Trevor.
Oh no, I'm not the biggest fan of summers. Like,
wow. I don't like. Well, then you should be recruiting. I think it's insane for that to even be brought up, though, the weather, because USC is now in a national conference. So you said Michigan, you said Ohio State. There are going to be opponents that they could have potentially in the end of November, going forward. So there's going to be snow no matter where you go. Yeah, your home games won't have it, but on the road, you're still going to come into contact with it. So I know that's always the negative about Notre Dame. Well, yeah, go there in the winter. But even our winters haven't been as bad up here for anybody that's local the last few years. So I think it's trash that, and like the guy, he didn't hate getting a paycheck from Notre Dame and working for him until he left, did he? So I just think all of it's just a lot of.
See, and that's what stuck with me. It's not necessarily what Marcus Freeman said. It's what he didn't say, because what's interesting to me, this was the only time that Chad Bowden's name was mentioned to Marcus Freeman. These guys were friends going back to their time together working for Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. And so Marcus Freeman comes to Notre Dame. He helps bring Chad Bowden here. And obviously Chad Bowden grows in the position, especially under Marcus Freeman, when recruiting started taking off. Give him his props, give him his due for what he did here. But I just find it a little zesty that, given their history, Marcus Freeman never said anything, didn't mention Chad Bowden's name. He never said anything like, well, he may be at Southern Cal now, but he's a great guy. I enjoyed working with him here at Notre Dame. You're going back to our time together at Cincinnati. Nothing like that. And I think that, again, what Marcus Freeman didn't say speaks pretty loudly of what he probably thinks of Bowden now, especially considering that those comments Bowden made about working for a coach like Lincoln Riley, who values recruiting so much. The reason Chad Bowden was brought in was because, well, let's ask our USC fans, how much did Lincoln Riley actually value recruiting before they went out and kind of forced him to do this? So, he's keeping Bowden's name out of his mouth, and I don't think it's by accident that he kept it out of his mouth. Probably a pretty sour taste that he's got left in his mouth from Chad Bowden. So I thought that was the most interesting thing to come out of that.
Like Trevor said, how classy, though. Everything he does when he speaks, it's like, it almost seems rehearsed. I don't know. It's just really good. He can't make himself more of a player's guy, I don't think. Because even listening to that, I'm like, man, that's a guy I'd want to play for.
Yes. Today is Thursday, guys. Notre Dame hosts Southern Cal this Saturday in what is, as of now, the last guaranteed meeting between these two old rivals in a rivalry that dates back nearly 100 years. Scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you feel that we could hear an announcement of an extension of the series before Saturday night's kickoff?
0. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is going to get renewed. And if it does, I don't know if it's going to happen this Saturday. I would love to be proven wrong because I want this rivalry to continue like we talked about on Tuesday. But you have two sides fighting completely different battles. I mean, Notre Dame already moved this series once for USC because they didn't want to come out to South Bend in November anymore, so they moved it up to October. And now they have to move it again because it benefits USC. Notre Dame gets no benefit in their future schedules playing USC in September. You have to fit them in between Alabama and Texas, whereas USC has to fit them in between Ferris State and the Indianapolis School for the Blind. That's just not a fair compromise. So I have zero confidence that it gets done, and I hope I'm proven wrong.
I'll give it a 1 just because anything's possible, hopefully, in the world. But I mean, there's two different conversations there. What does it mean to Notre Dame? What does it mean to USC? Is, everything into this has seemed like it's all from USC's side. They're unhappy about their travel. They're unhappy about this. So you know what? If they don't want to play, it's almost fine. But I don't think they're going to want to renew. So Notre Dame.
You don't think USC is going to want to renew?
No. The only way they would want to renew is if they got that Netflix deal that they could travel to a different stadium and take the money on their own. I don't think that they want to renew the rivalry to be a home and home. They don't want any of that. They're fine with their Big Ten matchups and playing whoever they want for out of conference that are nobodies. I don't think I wish that they would want to renew, but there's no shot that it's going to happen before Saturday. Even if it does, it'll be years from now. They'll maybe realize it's been 5 years. Let's start scheduling it again. But like Trevor just said, you're going to have to make room on the schedule because a lot of it's backed up with 9 games in the conference.
Yeah, those all sound like a lot of excuses to me on both parts. You know, like I understand what you're saying, but if you want to get a deal done, it does require some compromise. So like, you know, Trevor talked about, well, you changed the series in 1961. Well, I mean, we're going on 60 years, so 65 years.
Sure. But let me ask you this though, Sean, what would be the compromise on Notre Dame side moving it to September?
What do you mean? Like
what you said, in a deal like this, there has to be compromise on both sides. USC is benefiting from Notre Dame not being in the middle of their conference play. What's Notre Dame's benefit for like years like 2029 when they have Alabama and Texas also in September?
Well, I've talked about this, and we may have talked about it a couple of days ago. I can't remember if we talked about it or if it was Vince was on the show. There may be some years. This may have to become an intermittent rivalry like Michigan was, where you're not playing every year. So like if Notre Dame has those years, which they do, where they've already, you know, like next year, obviously, they already have scheduled out with Wisconsin and Michigan State in September. There's no room for more games in September, you know, in terms of especially where USC is probably going to be willing to play them. So this may be a series that becomes not an annual series anymore, where it's like maybe you're on for 3 or 4 years and then you have to take a couple years off because of where Notre Dame already has some of these other games. Like they've got Michigan in the future. They've got Alabama in the future. They've got Texas, as you've said, they've got Indiana coming on in the future. So there may be times where you can't do that. And there are, you know, you're also going to have Clemson coming on the schedule regularly. Where that game is going to fall, we don't know. And what Notre Dame is going to, you know, because that's part of the thing as well with Thanksgiving weekend. I've talked about this before as well. Now, again, this is all USC's own doing because they were fully willing to take that big paycheck and leave the Pac-12 and go to the Big Ten. But with USC and Stanford both on the schedule annually, when they were both in the Pac-12, like Notre Dame fans probably don't really realize it, but like the USC fans who are watching and listening to this know full well what I'm talking about. USC and Stanford would play each other in September to accommodate the fact that they were both going to play Notre Dame in October and November. And so they had a partner that could make that arrangement work. You know, we're like now where USC is in the Big Ten and Stanford is off to the ACC, they don't have that partner to help fill that gap once they get into conference play in October and November, where they had to take a pause and play Notre Dame. So, you know, that's part of this issue as well. It's not just all, you know, like USC. It's also the fact that the Pac-12 stopped existing and they're not in the same conferences. So they don't have a partner who could help them out. Now, if they could find a partner in the Big Ten who were willing, you know, like to be part of an agreement like this, and even if it was not even always the same partner, but if you could just find rotating, you know, other Big Ten teams to plug in, like you do have Michigan and Michigan State coming on, like that could potentially be helpful as well. So, like, as for me, I feel like it's been really quiet this week, you know, like getting back to the actual answer. Could we actually hear something? My answer, will you let me finish the answer to my question before you start chiming in again, Bobby? You've already got a chance to talk. Come on, man. My answer is a 3, that something could happen. It just feels like as quiet as it's been, you know, like neither athletic director has said anything this week. Crazier things have happened where, you know, like we get to the stadium and within an hour before kickoff, there's a press release, you know, sitting on our, you know, at our seat when we get into the press box where, you know, something is announced like that. It would obviously be very good TV if NBC could, you know, have that announcement when they go on the air. Am I overly confident that's going to happen? No, but I'll give it a 3 just because it feels like with all the talk about this and the fact that it's been so quiet along those lines this week, I'll give it an outside chance that it could actually happen. Bobby, the stage is yours.
I don't need the whole stage. I'm just saying. Trevor asked, "Well, how would it benefit Notre Dame?" And I guess that was what I was thinking about. Is I
Well,
don't
you still need to put together a schedule, because like
Right.
if USC
Right.
goes by the wayside,
They
even
need a
though
partner to
they've
switch
plugged
up.
in Clemson, but you're also losing Stanford now. So like you're not just losing USC, but we don't know what's going to happen with the Stanford series, either. So like there is a hole that you've got to fill in your schedule going forward if you're Notre Dame. Do you want it to be a MAC team every year?
No, but I think that what's nice is a year like this where you early loaded your schedule with all of your opponents. They lost their 2 toughest games and they're still in the playoff talk because those big matchups. So if you can add them to a September, that's the benefit to Notre Dame. Whether they win or they lose, you have hopefully, because this is the other problem with these future schedules. You don't know how good anybody's going to be 2 or 3 years from now necessarily. But at least Notre Dame, if they play USC, it's a program that should look good. You hope for the win, but even if you don't win, it's another good data point early in the year that can help you later in the year and stay high in the ratings no matter what happens. And that would be the benefit, obviously, for Notre Dame.
Trevor's shaking his head. He's like, I'm done with this conversation.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of those where it's like, I have no concern whatsoever Notre Dame is going to be able to find a 12th opponent. I just don't think that their only benefit of moving it to September can't be, well, their schedule will be finalized. It's like, I'm coming at this more of like a fan standpoint of like, it's tradition. It happens every single year. USC would still get to say, hey, we get to play this every year. Now we are solely playing it on our terms.
Right.
Whereas Notre Dame's benefit is our schedule's done.
Yeah.
I think those are not equal.
Roger Dodger,
in my opinion.
Roger Dodger says just schedule UCLA, and we've talked about that before as well. Like if Notre Dame still wants to get to Southern California every couple of years, I think that UCLA would be a really good choice. At least as again, like a rotating alternative. It doesn't have to be UCLA every year, but and the other side of this, we've talked about this. Like maybe you're just done with Southern Cal because they're Southern Cal and they're your bitter rival and everything else, but that's still part of the fun of college football. Like everyone wants to talk about how much more fun college football is than the NFL and everything else. Well, part of what makes it so much more fun is, the rivalries that you have in college sports. They are so much better and I think so much more intense in college sports than in professional sports.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's one of those core traditional rivalries in my eyes. And it's to me, and I know people disagree with this, but to me, it's like, okay, then let's just get rid of USC and Michigan being annual. I know they're in the same conference, but the Big Ten has 18 teams. You don't have to play Michigan every year.
Right.
Like, let's get rid of the Iron Bowl. The SEC has 16 teams and you don't have to play Auburn every year. Like that's how I look at the Notre Dame USC game. I hold it in that light, and it's just unfortunate that it's probably going to go away.
Well, Trevor said
let's take a break and then we'll come back and we will continue with more rapid fire Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Glad to have you with us here today. Don't forget, kickoff is at 7:30 Saturday night. Game day show is from 3 to 6:30, and they've got Torian Smith, they've got Matthias Farley, and they've got Carlo Calabrese joining them as guests. 3 former Notre Dame football players will be with them at the linebacker. Bobby, you look like your lips are ready to say something, but you don't know what to say.
No, I'm just happy that, we get to talk about the schedule so much. Something that won't happen for
everybody's
5 to 10
fired up,
years.
man. Everybody's fired up. We got USC fans in the YouTube chat, and we're all talking about whether or not Notre Dame and USC is going to continue. Could something get done? I don't know. It's just, I don't want to see another rivalry go by the wayside, especially considering, like Notre Dame hasn't played Michigan in so long. And I know that doesn't bother Vince, but I miss Notre Dame, Michigan. And there's a part of me that misses Notre Dame, Miami as bitter as that became. And I don't want to see another rivalry, just completely go away because of something as stupid as the things, that are being talked about right now. Don't tell me about travel when you signed up for travel and you signed up for big paychecks and you've been coming out to South Bend, Indiana every other year, not quite for the last 100 years because you came to Chicago, but you still came to the middle of the country. It's been going on for a long time, Southern Cal. It's been going on for a long time. So don't tell me travel's an issue now just because you can't win at Maryland. Sorry.
But travel wouldn't have been an issue to go to Mexico City and take Netflix money
exactly.
for the game.
You're willing to go to Mexico City for a bigger paycheck, but you don't want to come to South Bend.
I think what's sad about losing that rivalry is just that it's not local. It's a cross-country rivalry, and there's not a whole lot of those. And that's what Trevor was saying before.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just what's so unfortunate about it all, because it's one of the benefits about being a Notre Dame fan is you love the tradition around the program. And Sean, I think you said it best, man. Look, the rivalries with Navy and Purdue and Pitt and Boston College, like they're fine, but I like rivalries where both teams just don't like each other.
Yeah.
Like I that's what makes sports fun. Like the cool thing about sports is after the Notre Dame Michigan game, they're not like, all right, dude, good stuff. And then they sing each other's alma mater. Like last year, people got pepper sprayed. Not advocating for that to happen. I'm just saying the best part about college football rivalries is teams don't like each other. Players don't like each other. Fan bases don't like each other. And the NFL rivalries are kind of like, they're fine, but they're more between fans because NFL players understand it's like, hey, exactly. I know the grind that you guys put in. We do the same work. But this is like, man.
You don't have large groups of people who work for the Philadelphia Eagles or the New York Giants or the San Francisco 49ers, whereas you literally have thousands of people who go through these institutions and go to school there, in addition to the Subway alums in Notre Dame's case and, and the adjacent fans as well who have been around these programs for so long. That's part of it. Like it's in many cases literally in your blood when it comes to these college allegiances and that kind of thing. So it just, you hate to lose it. We've lost so many rivalries as it is. Again, we've already lost Michigan. We've already lost Miami. We lost Michigan State and Purdue for that matter, even though Notre Dame is playing Purdue more often now. I mean, does that whet your appetite? Does that make you feel any better that you're playing Purdue instead of potentially USC? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You don't see jersey swaps in college after a rivalry game like you do in the NFL. And it's just sad. But Notre Dame, the brand that is Notre Dame, they're the biggest game for everybody they play. So everybody wants to be Notre Dame's rival. And I guess you don't want to have a top 10 schedule playing the top, like literally every top 10 team, but some of these matchups, it seems like should be protected.
I concur. Fill in the blank. Curt Cignetti signing a new 8-year contract with Indiana worth $11.6 million a year today is blank.
Deserved. Like we were talking about, Sean, I mean, he's already the best coach in their program's history, and he's been there for a year and a half because he's done things in that year and a half that no other coach has done with Indiana. I mean, the margin for error with him, I saw some people earlier in the chat talk about, midseason contracts are scary because, Charlie Weiss and Tucker from Michigan State. It's like, look, the margin for error at Indiana is like, what's a bad season for Cignetti at this point? It's like what? Maybe he goes like 8-9 wins. 2 years ago, that is like a stellar season for
you. Would have taken that.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. 9 wins. Are you kidding me? Indiana would have signed up for that. I don't know if they'd be giving him $11 million a year, but they would have signed up for that 2 years ago. Give me 9 wins every year. Absolutely.
And that's what's wonderful about what he can do. I think that
Mel Tucker is a good example that Michael brings up in the chat, though. Like that is one that is kind of like, it's a little bit, asterisk off to the side because of, Mel Tucker, basically that was more, he's not there because of his own doing, not because of anything he did or didn't do coaching on the field or anywhere else.
I think the midseason contracts are always dicey, but I mean, transparent why he's getting it right now. There's a huge program that has an opening, and he was one of the rumored names. So that obviously you have to do something to protect yourself from him leaving or even being tempted to leave or thought about leaving. So I just think it's fine that it protects IU. It gives them, obviously he's probably not going to leave for a few years because no contract means you have to stay to the end of it. We saw that obviously with Penn State. So I think
there are buyouts for a reason. Yeah.
So it's deserved, but I think it's just a protection move from IU to they're investing in their program, which is kind of cool because not only are they actually winning, and I'm not an IU fan or anything like that, but it's cool that they're winning, investing in themselves and trying to continue it and actually paying out for the guy.
Irish for Life 99 in the YouTube chat says 1 win over a good team and worth that much money. Absolutely, yes, worth that much money because
and a playoff
football money in Indiana's not even getting basketball shares right now because they're not making the NCAA tournament in basketball nearly on a regular basis. Not obviously anywhere close to what they used to make the NCAA tournament. Even when they're going, they're not making deep runs in the tournament, and the money that comes with being a good football program, a successful college football program, it pales in comparison to basketball, and that's why you're willing to shell it out. Because again, they went to the college football playoff last year, so you get the Big Ten share on top of your own share if you're Indiana. You keep doing that, the paychecks keep coming in, and everyone needs more money right now. So you got to spend money to make money, and it's absolutely worth it if you're Indiana, considering you have never done in the history of your program, a program that's been around a long time, by the way, you've never done what Curt Cignetti has done, as Trevor said, in the last year and a half, what they've done. So it's absolutely worth every penny that they're spending. I would have signed up for it too. To me, the biggest thing I look at in this whole thing is like, if you're Curt Cignetti, you didn't even just say, hey, I'm coaching football right now. Let's let this thing play out into the end of the season. We'll talk about it at the end of the season, and let the process take place where Penn State contacts your agent and, everything else. And at that point, you're holding out and you can drive up the price even more. Like, that's what surprises me out of this. But maybe Cignetti at 64 just really appreciates the opportunity that he got from Indiana that he was not afforded by any other FBS team. He's already shown that he can have a lot of success there, and he's happy in Bloomington, and he likes it there. So if that's, which appears to be the case, so good for him that he's not just wanting to take another paycheck and go out and bail and go someplace else. Yeah,
but at this point now, is the expectation kind of bumped up a little? Because like you said, 7-8 wins before, you can stay as long as you want because we're still doing pretty good. We're above 500. We're making bowl games. Now that you pay all that money, what is the new expectations for the program? Is there a possibility in 3 years he wins 5 games for a couple of years? He's on a hot seat again, or not again, but on a hot seat. So does this change the way you look at him or the program or expectations? Or does he just keep going like he is and see how long it can last?
Yeah. Irish for Life says he still disagrees. He says he thinks he deserved a raise, but a 64-year-old 10-year, $100 million contract with $80 million guaranteed. I mean, you can talk about $80 million guaranteed. None of us have seen like the dotted line.
I mean, he's also
buyouts are there for a reason, so like, I don't know. Go ahead, Trevor.
He's also not an NFL player. Like, it's not, he's not, Indiana didn't just pick up somebody in NIL.
There's no injury risk.
But, right. Like he's a coach. He's not out there playing. I mean, look, it's subjective. I understand what you're saying, Irish for life, in all seriousness. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
A year and a half, but it's relative. If Notre Dame had a new coach, like let's say Marcus Freeman wasn't here and Notre Dame was struggling, like out of the Weiss era, and they did what Brian Kelly did, and they're in a national championship, they have a quicker turnaround than what they did from 10 to 12. At a program like Notre Dame, I'd be worried if they gave somebody a contract like that. But at a place like IU, there's no guarantee that somebody else can replicate what Curt Cignetti did. So you hold on to him, especially to Bobby's point, with a big opening within your conference.
Right.
You make that deal.
Because he's already, again, he's shown it through year 2. Like, if they don't make it to the playoff at this point, I would be completely shocked. And, again, like, he's not just winning 7-8 games. He came in, won 10 games in year 1, got him to the playoff, and he's going to get him there again this year. So there's no reason to believe that it won't continue after that. Final timeout, and then back to wrap up the show. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down the show, Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com with Bobby Hensley and Trevor Trowbridge. I'm Sean Stiers. Kurt Cignetti getting a big payday today. One of the highest paid coaches in college football right now. Josh says IU has a favorable schedule next year as well. Ohio State will be the hardest game. I mean, again, like this is welcome to Big Ten scheduling.
Yep.
They're going to have a favorable schedule every year going forward because none of the schedules are nearly as tough as the Big Ten makes them out to be. And Indiana has shown that they're just going to get rid of any Power 4 opponents that are non-conference that they don't have to play. The Big Ten still is not mandated that they play a 10th game against a Power 4 team like the other 3 Power 4 conferences have already done. So, the non-conference is going to be soft. And if you lose 2 games in conference play as Indiana or Oregon or whoever else in the Big Ten, Trevor, you're going to be a playoff team.
Yeah. Well, that's just the Big Ten in general. You're talking about an 18
Right.
team
That's what I'm
conference
saying.
that has 4 to 5 good teams.
Yeah. Unless you're Purdue, you've got a pretty soft schedule in the Big Ten.
Or unless you're Purdue or Wisconsin. Good
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, like they've been stuck with the toughest schedules in the Big Ten the last couple of years.
Yeah, they're the whipping boys. Some of the times you get to the end of the season and like 9 wins on those weak Big Ten schedules doesn't mean 9 wins compared to the other conferences and how tough that is. And the bottom of the Big Ten is just so epically bad. Like even the SEC, I'm not saying this conference better than that one, top heavy or whatever, but at the SEC, the bottom is so much better. Even the ACC is more competitive than the bottom of the Big Ten, where some of those programs seem like they're fine just taking the TV money, and they don't really care how many games they win each year.
Yep.
Yeah. Look,
Wisconsin.
I'm sure we would all agree, like, Nebraska's a middle-tier Big Ten team. Like, is that fair? Like, they're not in the bottom of the bottom. They're definitely not in the top. Nebraska's middle-tier Big Ten team.
Yeah.
They haven't had a ranked win since 2016. That's the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Like,
especially as big as the Big Ten is. But by the way, like going back to this whole thing with shelling out the money for Cignetti and all the money, do you think that if Purdue was in the same situation and Cignetti was at Purdue and doing the same thing, or Illinois or any of these other schools, all of them would pony up with the threat of him going to Penn State, leaving for Penn State, and, like having the kind of success that Cignetti has had at any of those non-traditional schools across the Big Ten, or even Michigan State that's had some success. I think they would all cut that paycheck without even thinking about it.
I think the numbers we hear just sound big because like that's Sean Steyer's money right there, getting all that. But it just sounds like a lot to us. But the program itself that's making tenfold of that. I don't think that people realize how little a drop in a bucket it is for a program to be elevated that much. You're going to have to pay. I mean, even Penn State, who we talked about if they're lucrative or a desirable, attractive job, they're dumping $7 million into just their facility. So I don't think the numbers on the contract are as important as some people think.
No, I'm with that.
Joe says he thinks Penn State's search is going to be similar to the Knicks. They'll go after big names, but none will want to go, so they'll settle for an assistant from somewhere. I don't know if it falls off that far to an assistant coach, but like Matt Rule seemed like the obvious choice. Kurt Cignetti seemed like 1B to me, considering the success that he's had. So I will be, like, do they end up with Matt Rule? And if not, who does end up being the Penn State head coach?
Also, are they driving up the price on themselves by getting these names leaked and having them all sign big time contracts?
I know. Like, what happens if Matt Rule signs a contract extension next week at Nebraska? I don't think he will, but
yeah, are they going to give him $12 million to come to Penn State?
Yeah.
One name that Brian actually did float out there that I thought was interesting. He said this earlier in the show today, but he mentioned Manny Diaz, the head coach at Duke. I mean, if they're able to get a good win this weekend over Georgia Tech, Manny Diaz is Penn State's former defensive coordinator. That could be something.
Right.
And that's not a bad coordinator to land with either, if that's where it ends up going. I mean, I read an article that said they were swinging for the fences. They go, you start by asking Nick Saban, which I think is incredible. But then obviously Freeman was on that list. And then, but any big name might as well just swing for it.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for today. For Trevor Trowbridge and Bobby Hensley, I'm Sean Stiers. We've got more tomorrow. Brian Driscoll's going to drop in. Big recruiting weekend coming up for Notre Dame with the Southern Cal game this weekend. Driscoll's going to give us all the recruiting info at the beginning of the show tomorrow. And, of course, we'll talk more about the matchup between the Fighting Irish and the Trojans. Thanks, guys. I will talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.